This is Low Carb Mom, your weekly support resource for maintaining a keto or low carb lifestyle. I keep you on track with a tip, low carb resources, and a meal plan for the next 7 days. Use this resource to stay focused, motivated, and inspired in your low carb lifestyle. My name's Elizabeth, and it is delicious, nutritious, and most importantly, free. And the main reason that you are neglecting this amazingly satisfying low-carb food option is the lack of a system to just make it on a regular basis. Of course, I'm talking about bone broth this week, not the kind of broth that you buy at the store in a box, and not the bouillon powder that you reconstitute using your kettle. Real bone broth. It comes straight from, you guessed it, bones. It's a brown liquid that usually thickens and sometimes solidifies very satisfyingly into jelly in the fridge, leaving a layer of fat at the top. I often remove the fat and save that for cooking through the week. So what, you might wonder, is the big deal about bone broth? Why are we going crazy about it? When something makes it into the must-have list, it has to check multiple boxes, not just one. Homemade bone broth is one of these high-caliber, low-carb menu items. Neglecting this is the nutritional equivalent of leaving money on the table. Pick it up. It's high value, it's low cost, it's low effort, and it helps you on your low-carb lifestyle. The biggest benefit of having bone broth in your arsenal is that you always have a delicious, highly satisfying drink to distract you from food cravings for long enough to allow them to subside naturally, so that no willpower is required. In addition, if you happen to have a food craving, it might be triggered by the lack of one of the elements that bone broth can supply, such as hydration, maybe you're just thirsty, fat. Often a little bit of fat can actually quench that hunger. And electrolytes. Very often when we're going keto, we might be missing electrolytes, and sometimes you'd be surprised how much you just need a little bit of salt just to stop that hunger. It's weird, but it works. It contains many of the macro and micronutrients of meat, which is great, and it has a very low calorie impact. Some of the calcium and the magnesium from the bones, and also vitamins A, B, and minerals like zinc, iron, calcium, and selenium from the bone marrow end up in the broth. Collagen from the bones, which turns into gelatin when cooked, provides amino acids. I'm talking about protein there. It contains as much or as little fat as you choose to leave in it. Once your system feels the presence of that missing element, your food cravings can just fade away. You don't need a strategy like this to work every single time you use it for the benefit to have a significant impact on your daily progress. When you get in the habit of trying bone broth first, before reaching for a carb hit, you will find some percentage of effectiveness. And in my experience, bone broth works as a bridge between meals. It also helps you to get through a longer fasting period. For example, if you're doing OMAD, one meal a day, in physical and also, most importantly to me, mental comfort, because we can all white knuckle it through physical pain. It's really that mental pain that we can't get through. And I'd say that this works for me at least 80 to 90% of the time. All I have to do is just think and remember, have some bone broth, and I'm probably going to be okay. It's one of the things. I have a few other things in my arsenal, but today I'm just focusing on bone broth. To make bone broth consistently, you have to adopt a system. Avoid any rules or fussiness as you start collecting bones. You can make bone broth out of any old bones. Life is hard enough, and bones are just everywhere. Cast a really wide net and say to the world, "Bring me your bones." You're going to be surprised. Everyone has bones. If you are practicing a low-carb lifestyle, you're probably already eating meat. So any bones left on your plate should be gathered up like little pearls out of shucked oysters. This may seem like a slow and meager process when all you have is like one chicken bone at the end of the night, but trust me, bones add up, and these juicy little gems have not yet surrendered all of their vitamins and their minerals and all of the benefits that they can deliver onto your body. Start a bone bag. This is really the big strategy. Start a bone bag in your freezer. And it's just a Ziploc bag, a nice big one, and start adding bones to it. Don't let your family toss bones out either. Redirect all of their bones from the green bin into the bone bag. Don't be squeamish about this. You're going to be boiling the heck out of those bones. So go ahead and collect everybody's bones all into that bag. Hit up your butcher as well, or even the butcher in your grocery store. I've heard of people making friends with their butcher and getting free bones, which is awesome. I would love to get free bones. And they're headed for the bin anyway, in the butcher's case. In my town, the butcher has figured out the market for bones. Everybody here seems to know how valuable they are, so I find mine in the frozen section, organized by animal and by part. If you're new to this, that can seem a little strange. With the benefit of experience, though, I can report that the marrow bones, the lamb, and the knuckle bones make wonderfully thick and satisfying broth. Chicken backs are also delicious. I love them, but I usually find that I add more beef or lamb just to enrich the flavor, give it a little bit more depth. Also, I like to thicken that broth up a little bit more. If you can get free bones, go for it. Really, bones, in my opinion, should be free. We're eating meat, so the bones, we shouldn't be throwing those away. And even if your butcher knows how valuable they are, you're still probably going to be able to get them for a pretty good price. Many of my mainstay recipes call for chicken broth or for some other kind of liquid. Even when the recipe calls for water, I now substitute my own homemade bone broth so long as I have some in the fridge, which is almost all of the time. It's ready in the fridge, it's more delicious than store-bought, and it contains better nutritional value than a carton of chicken broth. I'll use my broth in soups, stews, casseroles, and stovetop sauce recipes as well, just to name a few. If your bones are already cooked, as in a previous meal, use them just as is. If they are fresh from the butcher, I will usually roast them for about 30 minutes to 60 minutes or so at about 350 degrees Fahrenheit, or until they seem cooked. If any fats are rendered from the cooking of the bones, I save that fat for later. Sometimes I get some really nice tallow out of those beef bones. I once collected a whole bowl full of beautiful tallow, which was excellent for cooking in the next few weeks. At the time, I didn't know how lucky I was, because it really hasn't happened like that again. I don't know why I got so much wonderful tallow. But there it was marvelous, and not all bones render fat like that. So if you get fat like that, save it. It is gold. So, so good for all of your future recipes. I make broth in the slow cooker instead of in the pressure cooker, because I find that it takes the least prep time for me and the least effort for me. But you can go ahead and use your Instapot. It's technically faster, but I find I have to stand around and, use more of my own time to do that. So I don't mind using the slow cooker. I just throw everything in, and then it's ready. You should go to lowcarbmom.ca to get the bone broth recipe and to be able to just have a reference for how I make the bone broth. And it's pretty simple anyway. I'll just run through the recipe here, but go to lowcarbmom.ca if you want to have a reference for that. So the ingredients are, of course, cooked bones, and I should be doing a video for this because I usually use like this much cooked bones. It's, I guess maybe like a football sized, I'm holding my hands apart sort of like a football. 1 onion, I just cut that in half. I leave the skin intact. I don't even bother any more than that. Usually the onion's not dirty on the outside, so, just throw that in. 2 stalks of celery, roughly chop those. 1 carrot, again, roughly segment it. A few bay leaves, you can even just do 1. Bay leaves impart a lot of flavor right off the bat. So, but I just happen to have a large container, so when I grab a pinch of bay leaves, a few comes out, I don't fuss with it. And then water to fill your slow cooker. I have a nice big slow cooker, so I just go ahead and fill it to the top, basically. And then I also add 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, which is something that helps to extract all of those nutrients out of the bones. You don't have to add this apple cider vinegar, but I understand that it can help. I don't think it does much to the flavor. Add your seasoning to taste at the end. I'm talking about salt and pepper, but I also usually add either anchovy paste or I have these anchovy broth tablets that I got from Costco. I'll do that in my mortar and pestle. Okay, so let me explain. Add all your ingredients in without seasoning into the slow cooker. Turn it on high for 10 hours. And when the broth is ready, you're going to strain through a colander into a large container. Being careful, you can often splash yourself and scald yourself. So try to avoid doing that. I use tongs. I'm careful because when you are pouring it, you want to get the broth out quickly, and that's when you can make a mistake and scald yourself. So in a mortar and pestle off to the side, I'll combine my seasonings. I have some nice chunky salt, which is like a gray salt. I think it's French. And I just bought it from from Amazon. And I add in my fish little tablet and my bouillon cube, and I just smash those together until they're just all like a consistent paste. And then I just add that into my mixture, but I don't do it blindly. I kind of do it like half at a time, but I sort of know how much it should be. It's about a tablespoon of salt and 1 cube of the anchovy tablet. That's mainly what I need. The reason I use the mortar and pestle is because I find that the tablet, I feel like it won't dissolve if I don't kind of crush it up. So that's why I do that. Once your broth tastes right, place it in the fridge to cool, and once it's completely cooled, you're going to have some fat that has risen and solidified at the top. Remove the fat, and I always save that. You can discard it if you prefer. And that is the story of how I put together my bone broth. I try to keep a batch going every single week, or at least sometimes it'll last a couple of weeks. It depends what I'm doing that week. But if I forget to drink it, it's almost always a mistake because this is low calorie, high impact, and such a good reminder to just have some in the fridge. And whenever you're just having a thought, I'm in trouble, I'm reaching for chips, I want some bread, I want some potatoes, whatever your thing is that you're reaching for, just sneak in a little bit of that bone broth first, at least a cup of it, and you're going to find it helps. And it doesn't have to help every single time. As I said, it's okay if it helps 80% of the time, right? I mean, it's all about progress. Go again to lowcarbmom.ca, and I have found a couple of resources to just kind of bolster up this whole concept of the bone broth. I've got a video and I've got a book. They're both by doctors who are fairly well respected in the area of bone broth. I haven't really invested very much time in listening to them, their content, or reading their content. I'll just tell you that it seems like very traditional knowledge. I mean, they back it with medical knowledge and education, which is fantastic. But really, I sort of come by bone broth, honestly, with a background in a family that has always valued, really nice soups that always start with some bones. And it just so happens that I think there's a little bit of a craze going on right now where people are trying to be low carb, they're trying to be keto, and bone broth is one of these things that people are very interested in. Part of that is because when you're first initiating into keto and low carb, you can start to lose electrolytes, and bone broth is one way, especially if it has some electrolytes in it because you've salted it. It's one way to get some of those elements back in that can make you feel a little bit better. It also can just help you bridge when you're doing OMAD, which often people are doing when they're doing keto and low carb. So this is why the bone broth kind of matches in with keto and low carb, but bone broth is just great even if you're not involved in that sort of a diet. It's just fantastic. It makes you feel full. It makes you feel comfortable. It's great for your digestion. It's just really, really good overall. I recently went through surgery and I'm recovering from a sternectomy. I had a broken bone, and I was trying to have bone broth a little bit more frequently, in part because I had this idea, which is just almost like it doesn't seem like it necessarily is true, but I did find that when I drank the bone broth more and then had a good night's sleep, the following morning I actually felt as though maybe I was in a little bit less pain in the chest. And of course you are in a little bit less pain when you wake up in the morning because you've had a good sleep. And it's great to be hydrated. There's a lot of elements that just might make a lot of sense there. It's not like bone broth is magical, but I think there might be something to the fact that it comes from bones, and the nutrients out of the bones are being bioavailable in your own body. It probably does help somehow with healing. I don't know. It's just a story that I'm telling you about myself. And one of the reasons why I've recently become so much more enthusiastic about it, because of course I'm still healing from my surgery. So take that as you will. I think that it is a valuable thing to add to your arsenal when you are trying to be healthy. I also have on lowcarbmom.ca a nice low-carb meal plan. It's got breakfasts in it this time, which I'm actually still not having breakfasts, but I think that other people are having breakfast, and so I added them in there. I'll often have my breakfasts just throughout the day, like as a snack or as part of lunch or whatever. I just love all of these meals. I'm going to try to go through all of the recipes that I currently have on lowcarbmom.ca and make sure that they are open, because it's not my intention for them to be closed. I don't deliberately close them. But after a certain amount of time, they do become locked, and then you can access them as a subscription. So for now, I'm going to try not to let that happen. Just let those recipes be open so that you can look at them and give them a try, because I think that they are wonderful and very simple and very useful recipes to give a try. And of course, I've given some ideas for side dishes, snacks, and desserts, and all of that good stuff. Anyway, I'll let you go and explore lowcarbmom.ca as you would like to. Find this week's meal plan at lowcarbmom.ca. Recipes are going to be there too. If you want to join as a supporter, you can interact with me and the Low Carb Mom community. We touch base every week to share our progress, trials, and tribulations, and to support each other through the hard parts. In order to be tolerable in the long term, everything on my plate must be delicious and packed full of positive energy. This is a complete approach to life that will see us through strong and happy physically and mentally. Subscribe to Low Carb Mom at lowcarbmom.ca. Have a strong and healthy week, stay mindful, stay organized, and we will see you again next Monday. Bye-bye.